And it hit me. I said, well, damn, who other than African Americans sure enough need some social order and, I did, honest to God. That's what I said to myself. Yeah. I said, we just all need some, cultural guidance, cultural values, and social order.
The Afropreneurs Podcast, a podcast for African entrepreneurs, presents inspiring, innovative, and disruptive entrepreneurs from Africa as they share their lessons, insights, and learnings from their unique entrepreneurial ventures. I'll be your host. My name is Ogweno Stephen. Let's roll.
All right, so I'll just give a rough overview of where we are. So this is going to be a slightly long episode because we're going to talk about three key things. Concluding with the question, how do we get back to where we are? But first, we're going to talk about where we left with Kevin, which was talking about African heritage, primarily looking at the arts, the sculptures, the fashion, the design, and the significance of that. And then we'll sort of pull that into the next bit of the conversation, which we'll be looking at we can't finish this conversation without talking about the inventions give it some 5-10 minutes. Right. Especially because you are one of those inventors with, I think, how many patents now? 14? Mm-hmm. Yes. So we'll talk a little bit of those and a little bit of some African innovations and then finish off on the thought of how do we get back. So back to arts and culture, which is where you left when you are conversing with Kevin. Mm-hmm. What's the significance, and especially for you, who has been a collector? I mean, I'm a collector, but not as aggressively as you are already with all of the art, the sculpture, and the pieces. So could you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll sort of pick it up from there and move into the next bits.
Okay. About 20 years ago, I've always enjoyed art. Okay, quote. But 20 years ago, I really, through a friend who was a fine artist, who was a preserver of African culture material. We don't call it art. We don't call it, collecting. Because, in America, you can collect bobby pins. You can collect some ignorant stuff in America. So we don't use the word collecting. We use preserving. And we was talking about it as cultural material. Okay. Yeah. So now, 20 years ago, my friend David, who's now an ancestor, great fine artist, he really introduced me to the significance of African cultural material. And on many levels, on many dimensions and levels. One was the financial, one was the artistic, another was the artistic, the spiritual, and then also I guess you'd say the social. I'd say social. Now, see, one of the emphasis for me got to be, I say the social. When I say social, meaning the value system and culture. See, because the material, the art, quote unquote, is an artistic expression of cultural ideas for the purpose generally of maintaining cultural values and social order. Okay. And that's something very specific. And it hit me. I said, well, damn, who other than African Americans sure enough need some social order and, I did, honest to God. That's what I said to myself. Yeah. I said, we just all need some, cultural guidance, cultural values, and social order. And so then as you look at the material and study the material through that eye of, one, spirituality, two, cultural ideas, maintaining cultural ideas, perpetuating cultural ideas, maintaining social order, then you got a system actually a system that you can really understand the material. For example, the sculpture behind us is a very good example. It's from the Dogon people, okay? Now, what you might notice is that it's a male and female figure together. And they're doing what? They're playing the same instrument.
Yeah.
So that talks about, one, unity.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the two figures are approximately the same height.
Mm-hmm.
That means it talks about equality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in European art, always, I mean, historically, European art, always the women are in sculpture are made to be much shorter and very, no muscularity, all that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So now, what does that say about Europeans' idea of womanhood?
Mm-hmm.
Now, because according to Europeans, we Africans, men are barbarians regarding our women. And do not respect our women. Our women are 7 steps behind us.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. All men.
Oh yeah. And they're oppressed. Does this woman look oppressed to you?
No.
No. And see, that's our cultural values is not one of oppression of women.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why, and this helps you to remember that, that equal standing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in European art, it tells their story. Their story of one, violence, when we were talking about the horseman with the animal.
Mm-hmm.
You don't find that in African art. I have never seen it.
Yeah.
When I say African art, I'm talking about real cultural material. I talk about that, tourist nonsense, because for Africans, it wasn't about dominating nature. Mm-hmm. It was about the way of dominating nature is to stay alive and to live with nature.
Yeah.
You know,
collaborate with it.
Hello.
Yeah.
And respect it.
All
right.
Yeah.
So now the other thing, so anyway, I got started. We did an exhibition, I began to assemble and preserve some of the material. Okay. Mm-hmm. And my friend already had his collection, quote unquote. So we wanted to educate our community, because in my community, Philadelphia is the 5th largest city in America, but you would only see an exhibit of African art every 20 years. Mm-hmm. Because white folks was like, y'all don't get to see this shit.
Yeah.
And white folks, had totally colonized African cultural material. I mean, colonized it on a level that I can barely explain in words. But anyway, meaning every facet of it, okay? Meaning it's what it was, why it was, for whom it was, the economics of it, the publication of it, its study at university, its publication, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So ultimately, nothing in the hands of an African is considered of value. Yeah. I'm going to say that again. Nothing. So meaning, in your museum, which is a major and excellent national museum here, okay? If you're talking about culture material, all right, from the point of view of the West, that means Europe and America, African culture material is only valid if it's validated by white folks and in the hands of white folks. So now, if you have something there that is stolen and taken to a museum or a collection, now, but just for example, in Benin, where much of the art, of course, was stolen, there was much of the art. There was significant art remaining, but that art, you can't even find pictures of it. Okay? It's 100 years. You can't even find pictures of the art that was remaining because all the story was about
the art
that was stolen.
Yeah.
Hello?
And that then became more significant since it was stolen and taken away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it became validated. Because it was in the hands of white folks. Anyway, so my friend got me involved. We did an exhibition. We wanted to educate our folks. We did an exhibition at a local community library. Now, this was a poor neighborhood, all right? But that's what we wanted to do the exhibit, because we wanted to do it in an environment where people who normally would never get to see it.
Yeah.
All right? Because other people like myself and others who can travel, you get to see stuff. But in those communities, they don't even go downtown.
Yeah.
We did the exhibit. We worked with the library manager, great sister. The exhibit was, and we brought the finest material we had at the time. We didn't shortcut them and say, well, this is worth $60,000. I ain't bringing it to no. The best we have we want to be available to our people. The exhibit was so great that the main branch free library downtown was bringing busted loads of people
to come see the exhibit. Yeah.
And then they demanded that we do a major exhibit for them. And that's what launched us. And from there, we did a couple more exhibits together, me and my friend. And then he had to go back to his world of painting. And I said, well, I'll take up doing the exhibits. And ultimately, we've had over 3 million people see our exhibits. Yeah. Now, not only that,
which is no mean feat.
Mean feat.
Yeah.
Which is even greater because, one, we did it our way. We did it in a way that, one, made it accessible to the community. Yeah. So we did it in most cases where the material was not behind bars and 4 inches of plexiglass.
And glasses and whatnot. Yeah.
We did it with Black African scholars. You don't go to the exhibits and you don't hear nothing from an African from that community or an African scholar. You hear from what the Jews had to say about our material. Seriously. Yeah. So we did it our way. And also we did it independently, meaning I connected with people with African art importers and dealers. They helped me connect with people around the country. I got some of the finest work available for our exhibits, and we did huge exhibits. We did some of the biggest in history, both in terms of size and quality. And we had like 70, I forgot how many thousand people see our exhibit in Atlanta International Airport, which at that point was one of the biggest airports in the country. You know. Anyway, we did it without outside funding, without white folks' permission, and we put the names of the people who contributed the work, many of which were African. That's unfounded. You go to an exhibit, all you're going to see is the name of Jews when it comes to African art.
All right, thanks for listening, and that's a wrap for this episode. For more exciting episodes like this, don't forget to follow our podcast, the Afropreneurs Podcast, on all streaming sites, and visit our website at www.ogwenostephen.com. See you on the next one.